The coffee was still steaming on the counter when Marisol Vega left El Faro bar in San Francisco's Mission District after a late shift, in a city still reeling from the Loma Prieta earthquake. Streetlights flickered through the fog, and the smell of burning smoke filled the air as the two 9-year-old bartenders stepped onto the sidewalk in a thin jacket and small purse. A passerby saw her walking with a man in a firefighter's coat, the reflective strips on his shoulders the only thing standing out in the blackout's darkness. The lone camera at the street corner was broken, capturing just one blurry frame, two figures turning into the south alley. 6 days later, as the waters receded from Islais Creek's banks, police found something that made the city realize some secrets can't stay buried under mud forever. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. On the night of the 20th of October 1989, one day after the Loma Prieta earthquake shook the San Francisco Bay Area, the Mission District was still plunged in power outages and chaos. Familiar streets were pitch black, lit only by the faint glow of a few patrol cars and businesses running on generators. El Faro Bar, a small spot at the corner of 16th Street, stayed open later than usual to clean up damage from aftershocks. Marisol Vega, a 29-year-old Mexican-American bartender, worked the final shift of the day. She was the last to leave the bar, at 1:05 a.m., according to the wall clock. Coworkers said she carried a red cloth purse, wore a blue denim jacket, her hair tied up high, and mentioned walking to her apartment 6 blocks away. At a nearby intersection, a witness named Victor Ramirez, a nighttime delivery driver, saw her talking to a tall, burly man in a gray firefighter's coat with yellow reflective stripes and an SFFD logo on the shoulder. Ramirez clearly recalled the light from a parked car's headlights, reflecting off the man's brass badge. They spoke briefly before heading toward the alley connecting Cap Street and Mission. No one knows where they went after that. The security camera at a nearby liquor store captured nothing but a single frame, the shadow of a woman with a red purse fading into the dark. After 1:10 a.m., the street was completely empty. Thick fog rolled in from the bay, carrying the acrid smell of electrical burns and crumbled concrete from cracked buildings. The next morning, when the new shift began, Marisol didn't show up. The bar owner called her apartment. No one answered. By noon, Lucia Vega, her sister, checked the apartment, finding the door locked, lights off, bed neatly made, wallet and keys still on the table. Lucia called hospitals around Mission, San Mateo, and General Hospital, but no one named Marisol Vega had been admitted. Late that afternoon, a sanitation worker reported finding a red cloth purse abandoned near the collapsed Muni station entrance, containing only a lighter and a dusty notebook. Lucia brought the purse to the Mission police station, filing a missing person report at 5:30 p.m. The report read, Marisol Vega, female, 29, 5'5", black hair, left El Faro Bar at 1:05 a.m., the 20th of October 1989, has not returned. That was the first line in the case file numbered 89 Mr. On the morning of the 21st of October 1989, Marisol Vega's missing person file landed on the desk of the morning shift at the Mission police station. The city was still far from recovered after the earthquake, with power supplied intermittently to different areas, and many buildings cordoned off due to cracked foundations. A grown woman not returning home after a late shift wasn't deemed a priority. The duty sergeant, signing the report, added a note, possibly left voluntarily due to psychological impact of the disaster. Still, per procedure, 2 officers were sent to check the area around El Faro. They canvassed 16th Street, Mission, Cap, and connecting alleys, but found no signs of a struggle or blood, only broken glass and flickering streetlights. Another witness, a nighttime cab driver, said he saw a woman with a red purse standing at the corner with a man in a gray coat but couldn't recall any nearby car's license plate. Victor Ramirez, the delivery driver, was called in for a second statement. He confirmed seeing Marisol with the man in the firefighter's coat but said the light was too dim to describe his face. In his statement, Ramirez changed the timing, first saying 1:10 a.m., then 1:20 a.m. Police deemed his account inconsistent, noting it as unreliable. They contacted the San Francisco Fire Department to verify if any personnel were in the area, but received only a vague response that multiple teams were deployed urgently during the earthquake night. At Marisol's apartment on Cap Street, police found no signs of forced entry. The room was tidy, blankets folded, lights off, door locked. A prepared meal sat in the fridge, and a notebook on the table listed her work schedule for the next week. The landline had no messages, its battery dead from the prolonged outage. Police collected the red cloth purse Lucia brought, photographed it, and logged it, but didn't send it for testing. An internal report concluded, no evidence of a crime. Individual may have left temporarily or with an acquaintance. The family disputed this. Lucia, with two of Marisol's co-workers, organized a private search group. They printed flyers, posting them on utility poles and bus stops around Mission, South Van Ness, and BART. A few hotline calls reported seeing a girl like Marisol in Civic Center and Tenderloin, but police checks found no matches. The press didn't cover it. News was dominated by earthquake damage and the collapsed Bay Bridge. On the second day after the report, Lucia returned to the station with a portrait photo and noted that Marisol hadn't collected her weekly paycheck. Her bank account showed no new transactions, and her home phone remained inactive. Police maintained their assessment: missing adult, voluntary leave possible. Temperatures in San Francisco dropped to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, with intermittent blackouts leaving streets desolate at night. By the evening of October 22, Lucia's search group expanded to the Islais Creek waterfront, where workers were clearing post-earthquake debris. They used flashlights, checking the water's edge, but found only wooden crate fragments and debris from old warehouses. Police didn't join, deeming the area outside the missing person report's scope. That night, Lucia returned to El Faro, asking regular customers about Marisol. One man vaguely recalled her mentioning getting a ride with someone, but couldn't recall a name. The bar owner confirmed Marisol didn't typically take rides from strangers, usually walking home. The employee log's final entry read, Marisol, close shift 1 a.m. No one had more information. When the clock struck midnight on the second day since her disappearance, all traces stopped at 1:05 a.m., the moment she left the bar and vanished into the darkness of a city still shaken from the quake. 11 days after Marisol Vega disappeared, on the morning of the 31st of October 1989, a city sanitation crew was sent to Islais Creek in South San Francisco to clear debris and wreckage from collapsed warehouses post-earthquake. The weather was cold and foggy, the water still, reeking of oil and rot. Around 8 a.m., as one worker used an iron hook to pull debris near the shore, he struck something soft and heavy, wrapped in dark fabric. When the mass was dragged ashore, he realized it was a human body. Local police were called to the scene at 8:37 a.m. The area was cordoned off, and SFPD's crime scene unit arrived 40 minutes later. The body was an adult female, lying on her side by the water, lower half caked in mud and algae. Her left hand was bound with black nylon cord, her neck bore clear ligature marks, and her right wrist had circular abrasions, her skin pale and gray. Her long black hair was matted, several fingernails broken, red polish chipped. No wallet or ID was found. Under the mud near the body, police recovered a small sneaker with loose laces and a scrap of red fabric, likely from a purse. The cold, slow-moving water of Islais Creek had preserved the body better than cases found in the open bay. The initial scene report noted, unidentified female, deceased approximately 7-10 days, signs of strangulation, likely dumped post-mortem. The site was over 3 miles from El Faro Bar, about a 20-minute drive from Marisol's home. When the body was moved to the city morgue for autopsy, examiners found a thin silver bracelet on her left wrist double-twisted, a common style sold in the Mission. Lucia Vega, called to identify the body, confirmed it was the bracelet her sister wore daily, a gift from their late mother. Official identification was confirmed at 6 p.m. that day via dental records. The body was Marisol Vega, 29, missing since October 20. The preliminary coroner's report, conducted by San Francisco's chief medical examiner, stated, Cause of death: mechanical asphyxiation by strangulation, bruising on neck, abrasions on wrists and knees. No signs of impact from a fall. Estimated time of death was 10–12 days prior to discovery. Red fabric fibers and a small sample of industrial paint were found in her hair and nails. No stab or slash wounds were present. Decomposition suggested the body was kept in a cold, damp environment before washing into the creek. Near the body, investigators collected a menthol cigarette filter, 2 gray fabric scraps, and an empty plastic bag floating nearby. These were sealed in evidence bags labeled 89 mr divided by SC1 to 89 mr divided by SC5. A police patrol boat searched the waterfront, but found nothing significant beyond faint tire marks in the mud 30 meters from the site, likely from a large truck or service vehicle. With no direct witnesses and the industrial area sparsely trafficked, police could only assume the victim was killed elsewhere and transported here. The forensic team noted the water depth at the discovery point was about 3 feet, just enough for a body to surface as decomposition began. In the day's final report, lead scene investigator Sergeant Alan Gifford wrote, "Crime scene location not yet determined. Ligature and strangulation suggest intentional act. Victim may have known the perpetrator." The body was cleaned and stored for detailed autopsy the next day. As news of the discovery spread, Lucia Vega arrived at the morgue with 2 of Marisol's co-workers. They provided police with a list of Marisol's acquaintances and El Faro colleagues. The list included 6 names, among them Victor Ramirez, the last to see her alive. Police began re-interviewing them that day, but information remained vague. Some mentioned seeing a light-colored truck parked near the bar early that morning, but no one recalled a license plate. By the end of October 31, the case status changed from missing person to homicide investigation, assigned new number 89H142. The preliminary forensic report noted the ligature and paint sample weren't common in consumer products, possibly from construction or service vehicles. Still, no specific leads tied to a suspect. In the system, it was just another homicide among dozens of backlogged cases post-disaster. Police finalized the scene report at 11:20 p.m., sealing evidence in the Bryant Street storage. Marisol Vega's name first appeared on the list of female homicide, pending suspect identification. On the morning of the 1st of November 1989, the crime scene investigation of Marisol Vega's case continued at Islais Creek, led by SFPD's Major Crimes Unit and the Chief Medical Examiner's forensic team. The waterfront where the body was found was marked with yellow tape, but cold, wet weather and strong bay winds complicated evidence collection. The ground was muddy, mixed with oil and wood fragments, making tracks easily erased. 2 forensic technicians photographed the scene with a Canon AE-1 film camera, noting the body's position before removal and related objects. Initial samples collected included red fabric fibers tangled in the victim's hair, a menthol cigarette filter 60 centimeters from the body, and a red paint smear on a nearby rock. Additionally, the victim's broken fingernails contained gray residue, scraped with a scalpel, and sealed in a small plastic bag. Police deemed these the most viable for tracing contact. However, 1,989 forensic technology allowed only blood type testing and basic physical analysis, with no widespread DNA profiling. The paint sample, sent to the city lab, was identified as epoxy industrial paint, red oxide, commonly used on metal equipment. The red fabric was polyester, cotton blend, cut from thick material, possibly jacket lining or industrial cloth. The menthol cigarette filter was a common brand, untraceable to a user. A small grain of sand mixed with iron filings, likely from metal or painted surface contact, was found in the victim's hair. The detailed autopsy report, conducted by Dr. Harold Levison, forensic examiner, on the same day, stated, "Death by strangulation, 9 mm nylon cord, no stab or gunshot wounds, time of death 7–10 days prior to discovery." Under a microscope, he noted bruising on wrists, elbows, and back of the neck, indicating the victim struggled before losing consciousness. The stomach contained a small amount of alcohol and undigested food, consistent with a post-shift meal. From biological samples at the scene, the lab confirmed blood type A+, matching the victim's medical records, but couldn't identify other blood types. Mud and contaminated water damaged most tissue proteins. A small vial of dried fluid from the wrist was kept for future analysis. At the time, samples were stored in glass tubes without specialized refrigeration, risking degradation. Sergeant Alan Gifford, scene lead, noted in his report, "No clear footprints or tire tracks for matching. Scene disturbed by water flow and post-earthquake foot traffic." Conclusion: crime scene location undetermined. The forensic report, submitted to SFPD on November 3, spanned 9 pages, mostly physical descriptions and negative results. A hand-drawn map marking evidence locations was attached, sealed in case file 89MR, divided by SC. Police also collected a torn sandbag near the body, suspected to be used in moving it, but found no traces after testing. The technician's note read, "Insufficient data to identify murder weapon or suspect." Without DNA analysis in San Francisco in 1989, tissue and hair samples were labeled for future testing and stored at Bryant Street. 12 evidence items were sealed, labeled SC1 to SC12, each bag signed by the examiner with dates. The file detailed each item's position within a 3-meter radius of the body. After 3 days, the scene was released for workers to resume debris cleanup. No further examinations were conducted. Internally, the case was classified as homicide, no suspect, limited evidence. Forensic results were manually recorded on paper, with no color photos or digital storage. The sole negative film copy was sent to SFPD's evidence locker, with no record of who managed it directly. By late November, Gifford submitted a preliminary summary. The attack occurred between 1 and 3 a.m. On October 20, the perpetrator likely used a vehicle to move the body. High chance the victim knew the killer. He recommended prioritizing investigation of individuals in the area or public service roles due to the paint and fabric's technical origins. Without concrete evidence, this wasn't pursued. All evidence was then moved to Bryant Street's basement storage, resealed under 89MR Vega, Islais Creek. As winter set in, the case was shelved as pending suspect identification, leaving fragile biological samples and brief notes, the first pieces of a case no one knew would linger over 3 decades. After the preliminary forensic report, SFPD's Major Crimes Unit began initial investigations, focusing on the victim's acquaintances and El Faro's regular patrons. A list, based on statements from the bar owner, co-workers, and friends, included 12 names. Topping it was Carlos Jimenez, Marisol's ex-boyfriend, a mechanic at a shop near Potrero Hill, followed by Victor Ramirez, the delivery driver who last saw her, and several regulars, mostly workers and drivers. Investigators Alan Gifford and his partner interviewed each at the mission station. Jimenez said he worked the night shift on October 20, leaving the shop at 7 a.m., confirmed by coworkers. He admitted to arguing with Marisol 2 weeks prior, but insisted they'd broken up and had no contact. Hospital records showed he was treated for a minor burn that night, aligning with her disappearance, so he was dropped as a primary suspect. Ramirez, the only witness to Marisol with the firefighter-coated man, was questioned repeatedly about the man's appearance. He first described him as about 6 feet, light-skinned, but later said tanned, middle-aged. Police deemed his statements inconsistent and unusable for identification. Ramirez had no criminal record and was released but remained under watch. Beyond acquaintances, investigators reviewed El Faro's regulars from the past 3 months. They found 4 with minor records: a truck driver arrested for disorderly conduct, a warehouse worker suspected of theft, and 2 others with administrative fines. All 4 had solid alibis for October 20. The bar's employee log showed no unusual absences or missing items. A female coworker recalled Marisol mentioning someone in a firefighter uniform stopping by, chatting, but thought it was a joke and paid no mind. Police requested a list of San Francisco Fire Department teams on duty that night, but the response was brief. Multiple teams were deployed post Aftershock, with no detailed location logs due to system errors. They couldn't verify if the man was a real firefighter or an imposter. The investigation shifted to the discovery site. Warehouse workers and guards around Islais Creek were asked about unusual vehicles or activity on October 2021. One guard reported seeing a light-colored pickup truck parked at the waterfront around midnight but couldn't read the plate or recall the driver. Nearby warehouse cameras were checked but inoperable due to post-earthquake blackouts. No footage was recovered. The investigation then reviewed 34 local transport company trucks matching the description, but none aligned with the scene's tire marks. They also cross-checked public service workers owning similar pickups, but manual record checks took weeks with no results. Within SFPD, Marisol Vega's case was overshadowed by post-disaster cases and rising violent crime. Gifford suggested expanding the investigation to include emergency responders, but without specific evidence, this was denied. By late November, he submitted a summary: no clear suspect, no useful DNA or fingerprints, and a heavily disturbed scene. The temporary conclusion read, "Case remains open, awaiting new evidence." The Vega family continued their own inquiries, gathering local accounts around Mission, but most were rumors. Some claimed a man in a firefighter's coat was seen near El Faro days before the earthquake. Others denied it. Leads faded over time. By early December, police paused scene investigations to focus on other cases. Case 89H142, Vega, Marisol, was moved to unsolved, inactive, with brief notes, an empty suspect list, and a set of black and white photos of the cold waterfront. Less than 2 months after her disappearance, the investigation stalled at its starting point. No killer's name, no motive, no new leads, just a murder in a city, still clearing its own rubble. In the final weeks of 1989, the Marisol Vega case took a wrong turn as police focused entirely on one person, Carlos Jimenez, the victim's ex-boyfriend. The initial reason was his prior conflict with Marisol and the lack of any other suspect with a clear personal connection. To superiors, this was the most viable lead as the case began to go cold. Jimenez was summoned twice more in December for detailed questioning. He maintained his story working the night shift at the Potrero mechanic shop on October 20, leaving at 7 a.m., confirmed by 2 coworkers. Police checked the timesheet, but post-earthquake disruptions left incomplete records, noting only shift 19/7. The lack of solid evidence split the team. Some believed Jimenez was lying. Others saw him as a convenient target. Under pressure for progress reports, Sergeant Alan Gifford authorized a search of Jimenez's home. On December 18, police searched his small apartment south of Mission, seizing clothes, shoes, a utility knife, and a roll of nylon cord from the garage. Nothing matched the Islais Creek evidence. The cord was a different type, larger. No red paint or similar fibers were found. Yet, the scene report emphasized nylon cord potentially consistent with the case. Though untested, this note justified expanding the criminal investigation against Jimenez. He was detained for 36 hours at Mission Station, repeatedly questioned. Were you at El Faro on October 20? Do you own a truck? Have you ever worn a firefighter's coat? Exhausted, Jimenez reiterated, no. He only heard of Marisol's disappearance through friends. In tears, he said, "She was a good person. I never touched her." All recorded, but no new answers emerged. On December 20, the district attorney's office declined to issue charges, stating, "Evidence is circumstantial, insufficient for legal grounds." The investigation effectively stalled. However, the consequences of this misstep lingered. Internal reports noted Jimenez was monitored for 3 more months, despite no new evidence. He lost his job and moved out of the city due to neighbors' suspicions. The Vega family, initially trusting the police, grew furious upon learning of the excessive focus on the ex-boyfriend. Lucia Vega sent a complaint to the police chief's office, alleging unfair investigation and neglect of the real witness, the man in the firefighter's coat. The complaint went unanswered. Meanwhile, the investigation team dwindled. 2 technicians transferred, and Gifford was reassigned to an armed robbery case. Marisol's file was handed to a new sergeant for administrative monitoring. By late January 1990, a final report, under 4 pages, was submitted. Insufficient evidence to identify perpetrator. Primary suspect Carlos Jimenez cleared due to lack of physical evidence. No other viable suspects. Recommend keeping case open pending new evidence. The final line was stamped in red. Pending review. At the time, no one knew this brief phrase would define the case for over 3 decades. Internally, it was given the lowest priority, with no budget for follow-up. The evidence, red fibers, cigarette filter, ligature, remained in Bryant Street storage, never tested due to the city lab's backlog. By spring 1990, as San Francisco focused on post-disaster infrastructure recovery, unsolved cases piled up by the hundreds. Marisol Vega's name vanished from monthly reports, leaving only a thin file in the pending cases cabinet. On the first page, Gifford's hurried note read, "No witnesses, no weapon, no results. Perpetrator, possibly in public service." No one followed up on it. The team moved to other cases, and by April 1990, Marisol's case was coded H, on hold, inactive. What remained from the early investigation was a disjointed series of reports, a wrongfully targeted suspect, and untested evidence, the foundation of one of San Francisco's most persistent cold cases. By mid-1990, as post-earthquake backlog reports were sorted, Marisol Vega's case was officially closed. The San Francisco police chief signed an order moving case 89H142 from active investigation to unsolved homicide, citing lack of suspects and new evidence. In reality, the case had been dormant for months. The closure was mere formality. The evidence, 12 packages from Islais Creek and the victim's apartment, was sealed in thick paper bags, taped shut, labeled in blue ink. All were placed in a standard wooden box, coded 89MR, and moved to Bryant Street's basement storage, Locker 3. The 6th of June 1990. Log confirmed. Received by evidence technician Thomas McCauley, delivered by Sergeant Alan Gifford. A margin note read, "Seal intact, long-term storage." That day, scene photos and negative film were also stored in a manila envelope, sealed with a red DOJ stamp. No digital copies existed, as systems weren't digitized. In storage, Box 89MR sat among thousands of other unsolved cases, mostly murders, armed robberies, and post-earthquake disappearances. Gifford moved to new duties, and his team dispersed within months. No one followed Marisol's case. All investigative activity ceased, with only periodic evidence condition checks required every 2 years. The paper file was stored in a gray metal cabinet, labeled inactive file. The final 8-page report concluded dryly, "No suspect identified. Case suspended pending future evidence." Under DNA divided by forensic potential, a small note read, "Sample preserved. Future testing possible." In 1990, this was procedural. No one at SFPD believed DNA analysis could apply to a low-budget, minor case. The city's forensic lab prioritized high-profile rape and murder cases, leaving cases like Marisol's at the bottom. By year's end, the cold case unit's budget was cut 40%, and many old cases were permanently closed. Vega's remained on hold, awaiting a review that never came. Over the next decade, Bryant Street storage became a maze of thousands of evidence boxes. Relocations during 1997 and 2002 renovations caused mislabeled codes. Box 89MR remained listed but moved at least 3 times from shelf D14 to F22, then B5, with only cursory signatures on paper logs. After a minor basement fire in 1997, some files were damaged, and authorities noted some sealed boxes damp but contents safe. No specific checks were done. The Vega family sent annual letters to SFPD asking for updates, receiving generic replies. The case remains in storage and will be reviewed with new technology. By the mid-2000s, most original investigators had retired, and new staff knew Marisol Vega only through file indexes. El Faro bar changed owners, its old sign replaced by a cafe. and the story of the missing bartender faded into vague Mission District lore. In a 2010 evidence inventory, Box 89MR was listed as intact, unopened. A note added, retain per minimum 30-year regulation. Unknowingly, this administrative note saved the evidence from destruction during Bryant Street's expired case purges. In 2019, when California mandated reviews of unsolved cases for new DNA technology, Marisol Vega's file was flagged as a candidate. By then, no one knew exactly where Box 89MR was in Hunters Point storage, where evidence was temporarily moved during upgrades. New SFPD staff relied on faded logs, illegible signatures, and dateless codes. In the digital system, the location field for 89MR read, pending review. The phrase that closed Gifford's report nearly 30 years earlier reappeared, verbatim, in modern software, as if the case had never left that state. Marisol Vega, who vanished during the 1989 earthquake night, existed only in an old paper box, forgotten in Bryant Street's basement, where fading labels told of a time when justice, like the city, hadn't yet recovered. In March 2023, 34 years after Marisol Vega's disappearance, the San Francisco Police Department launched the Cold Case Inventory Project to digitize and review evidence from the 1,970 seconds to 1,990 seconds. The old Hunters Point storage, housing tens of thousands of dusty paper boxes and manila envelopes, was the starting point. Salty bay air seeped into wooden shelves, old tape peeled off, handwritten labels faded, and many boxes' codes were illegible. Among the 6 investigators was Detective Linda Tran, the cold case unit's youngest member, a former forensic specialist turned detective. Their task was to cross-check old catalogs, photograph, attach QR codes, and note each box's condition. They processed nearly 100 files daily. On March 17, in Row B5 holding evidence relocated from Bryant Street after 1997 renovations, Tran found a dusty, weathered paper box with a yellowed label, 89, MR, Vega, M. The edges were rotting, the strap loose, but the red SFPD seal remained intact, bearing a faint T. Macaulay, the 6th of June 2090 signature. She called an inventory technician to verify the code against the log. The digital list marked it as location unknown, presumed lost. The match caught Tran's attention. This was one of 47 boxes reported missing during relocations 2 decades earlier. She noted, located, intact, and requested permission to open it per protocol. Inside, the thick paper bags were still sealed, bearing Alan Gifford's signature and codes SC1 to SC12. One held red fibers, another a menthol cigarette filter, a small glass vial with nail fragments, and a few black and white photos from old negative film of the body at Islais Creek. At the bottom was a thin manila envelope labeled, Lab Report, 1,989, containing a copy of the forensic findings, blood type A+, no other samples identified. Tran skimmed the notes, spotting a handwritten line, sample preserved, future testing possible. She knew this was a gold mine. In the past decade, California's cold case program allowed reanalysis of biological samples over 20 years old, using modern gene sequencing. If the box's evidence was viable, it could reopen a case forgotten for over 3 decades. Tran contacted the city forensic lab to assess the sample's condition. The next day, a San Mateo County lab technician supporting SFPD inspected them at Hunters Point. Under a magnifying glass, they confirmed the tissue and hair in the glass vial retained dry material, suitable for DNA extraction. The inspection report read, condition, stable for extraction. Recommendation, proceed with analysis. Tran immediately drafted a 2-page proposal for re-examination, sent to the cold case unit chief, citing new genetic testing laws and stating, Vega, Marisol, 1,989, no identified suspect, evidence intact. Request reanalysis of all biological samples using STR and mitochondrial DNA sequencing. 3 days later, it was approved. Box 89MR was removed from storage, resealed with blue tamper-proof tape, labeled DNA Re-examination 2023. Transport followed strict protocol, a camera-monitored van, 2 escorts, and direct delivery to San Mateo's forensic lab. There, samples were logged into a modern tracking system with electronic codes. For the first time since 1990, Marisol Vega's evidence was opened under lab lights. Tran attended the intake, closely watching the small bag with the now darkened red fibers, still showing woven stitches. The 1,989 examiner's note remained legible. Poly-cotton blend, possible uniform fabric. Tran photographed it, logging details into the new digital file. When a technician asked, "Historical value?" she replied curtly, "Its value is a case without justice." That day, she reviewed the original file in the digital archive. Scene reports, forensic notes, photos, and statements were scanned and compiled into digital case CCU-89 Mr. The case structure was nearly fully reconstructed, from the missing person report to the pending review conclusion. Tran entered the first log. Reopened. March 2023. Subject: Vega, Marisol. In the notes, she added, "Initial evidence suggests potential biological match. Awaiting DNA sequencing results." This marked the official restart of the case's second phase, where a box thought forgotten became the centerpiece of one of the city's longest-running cold cases. As she closed the digital file, the lab clock read 1942. Outside, Hunters Point's gray sky glowed with port lights reflecting off old containers, a scene barely changed from 1989. Except this time, someone had finally unlocked a door sealed for 34 years. On the 3rd of April 2023, Box 89MR was transferred to the San Mateo County Forensic Lab to begin re-examination. One of the region's most advanced facilities, it was equipped with next-gen sequencing systems and high-level biosafety DNA extraction rooms. Dr. Samuel Chen, lead technician, received the Marisol Vega case file. He reviewed the 1,989 description, red fibers, menthol cigarette filter, nail tissue, and signed the sample condition log. The unsealing was recorded on continuous video, following strict chain of custody protocols. Samples were separated, relabeled, and placed in a sterile chamber for DNA extraction prep. Initially, Dr. Chen selected 2 high-potential samples, the red fibers from the victim's hair and the menthol cigarette filter found half a meter from the body. The fibers were cleaned with ethanol, then soaked in enzyme buffer to extract skin cells. The cigarette filter was split, half preserved, half pulverized in a protein, dissolving solution to release saliva-based genetic material. The process took 36 hours. By April 5 morning, Chen obtained 2 complete DNA samples. The fiber sample yielded a small amount, sufficient only for STR, short tandem repeat, analysis, while the cigarette filter provided enough for full nuclear genome sequencing. The first result appeared on the computer, male DNA, with complete identifying loci, confirmed non-matching with the victims. A cross-check in the National CODIS database returned negative no-matching profile. This meant the man who left the biological trace at the scene had no prior convictions or DNA on record. The preliminary report to SFPD's cold case unit stated, "Unknown male contributor, non-match to CODIS. Quality high, suitable for genealogical tracing." Detective Linda Tran visited the lab that afternoon for a direct briefing. Chen presented the STR chart showing 21 complete genetic markers rare for samples over 3 decades old. He said, "Technically, this is ideal for genealogical analysis." Tran understood. This opened the door to identifying the suspect through civilian databases, not just criminal ones. She immediately submitted a formal request to use forensic genetic genealogy, FGG, allowing tracing of the suspect's biological relatives via public platforms like GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. Before proceeding, the forensic team confirmed the DNA wasn't contaminated. They conducted additional tests, comparing the fiber and cigarette filter samples. Results matched 100%, proving both came from the same man, ruling out random or mixed sources. Dr. Chen updated the report. Same male profile on both items. Estimated probability of random match is less than 1 inch 10 billion. The sample was coded FGG Vega 202301, stored at 20 degrees Celsius. Concurrently, Tran reviewed the old case file to determine a suitable investigative direction. In Sergeant Gifford's 1990 report, a note read, "Perpetrator possibly in public service." This became significant alongside new evidence. The presence of industrial paint and polyester fibers used in technical uniforms. She shared this with Chen, requesting a chemical analysis of the fibers. Infrared spectroscopy revealed flame-retardant adhesive on FRP 200 fabric, a material used in firefighter uniforms from 1985, 1990. The discovery silenced the lab for a few seconds. Linda Tran noted in her investigation log, "Fabric consistent with firefighters' protective gear. Possible occupational link." On April 8, a 22-page forensic report was finalized, concluding 3 points. 1. DNA from evidence belongs to an unidentified male, not in CODIS. 2. The same profile was found on 2 independent items, fibers and cigarette filter. 3. The fiber composition matches materials used in late 1982 San Francisco firefighter uniforms. With the complete genetic dataset, Dr. Chen converted the data to FASTQ format for forensic genealogist Allison Kirk, an SFPD contractor tasked with genealogical tracing. He included a note. Quality sufficient for third-party database upload. Prioritize GEDmatch and family tree DNA. Before leaving the lab, Linda Tran signed the evidence transferred for genealogical tracing form. She knew the next step could take weeks, even months, but it was the first chance in 34 years to identify the man vaguely described in witness statements. The one in a gray firefighter's coat outside El Faro bar at 1 a.m. That evening, at the cold case unit headquarters, Tran updated the system. The 8th of April, 2023, DNA analysis confirmed male profile from 1,989 evidence. CODIS negative. Genealogical tracing authorized. She reopened the black and white Islais Creek crime scene photos, zooming in on the area where the cigarette filter was found. In the screen's cold light, the gray, blurry scene was a reminder that justice sometimes hinges on a single fiber waiting in box 89 MR for over 3 decades to be reopened. On the 17th of April 2023, the genetic data from the Marisol Vega case evidence was officially transferred to the forensic genealogy team working with SFPD. Allison Kirk, a genealogist with over a decade of experience, took on the task of cross-referencing the data on 2 major civilian platforms, GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA, where millions of Americans voluntarily store DNA for ancestry or family searches. The process began by uploading the standardized gene sequence from the San Mateo Forensic Lab, with legal confirmation that the data was used for a criminal investigation approved by a California court. The DNA sample was coded FGG Vega 202301 for anonymity. Within 48 hours, GEDmatch returned over 3,000 matches, with distant genetic similarities most unrelated. However, in the highest similarity group, 0.25–0.3% match, Kirk noticed the O'Leary surname, of Irish origin, concentrated in the Bay Area. Expanding the search on family tree DNA reinforced this. 5 O'Leary individuals showed 0.24–0.27% matches, indicating third or fourth degree relatives. Kirk built a digital family tree using public birth, marriage, cemetery, and civil records. After 4 days, a 120-year genealogy, starting with O'Leary ancestors who immigrated from County Cork, Ireland, to San Francisco in 1912, was complete. Among 3 living California branches, only one had a male born between 1945, 1950, matching the suspect's estimated age in 1989. The central figure was Raymond Patrick O'Leary, born 1952, a retired San Francisco Fire Department employee who left in 2005. Public records showed he lived in Daly City, less than a 20-minute drive from the mission. O'Leary's employment records, preserved in public service reports, noted he was a captain of an emergency response team in the southern sector, commended during the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake response. Old news articles called him an SFFD hero, leading a rescue team at a collapsed warehouse near Islais Creek where Marisol Vega's body was found. Comparing the commendation article's date with the victim's estimated time of death, Kirk noted a suspicious overlap. The article, published the 30th of October 1989, was one day before the body's discovery. Kirk sent a preliminary report to Detective Linda Tran, stating, "Genetic genealogy structure indicates high probability the suspect is an O'Leary. Only one individual matches age, gender, residence, and occupation. Raymond Patrick O'Leary." The report was marked Priority Review. Linda received the email at 6:30 a.m. On April 21, printed the full genealogy chart, and brought it to the cold case office. She and her supervisor reviewed each link, deciding to verify O'Leary's 1,989 public service records. The first step was accessing the San Francisco Fire Department, SFFD, administrative archives. Since records from that period weren't fully digitized, Tran requested originals. 3 days later, she received a 400-page file, including shift schedules, activity logs, and post-earthquake emergency reports. In the list of captains on duty, the 20th of October 1989, O'Leary, Raymond P., appeared with Team 14, covering Mission Potrero, Bayview. Cross-checking the shift log, Team 14 left the station at 0:45 a.m. to patrol a gas line leak near 16th Street near El Faro. The log noted, "Returned 2:30 a.m., but lacked a signature." Instead, a handwritten note in different ink read, "Patrol complete, no issue." Tran paused here. Other shift logs that night had captain signatures confirming return times. Team 14 was an exception. She reviewed the vehicle log for engine 14, driven by O'Leary. It recorded 14 miles traveled, 8 miles more than typical for other patrols. This suggested the truck went beyond its assigned route, Tran noted. Distance anomaly, possible diversion to Islais Creek area. On April 25, she met SFFD's HR director to confirm details. He verified O'Leary retired in 2005, with a clean record, no discipline, but when asked about the Islais Creek rescue, he hesitated. "I recall that incident, but no team was actually dispatched there. The article was wrong, based on hearsay." This heightened Tran's suspicion. The hero story might have covered an unexplained absence during the shift. By late April, Linda submitted an internal report to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, proposing O'Leary as a potential suspect. She outlined: 1. Male DNA from evidence matches the O'Leary lineage. 2. O'Leary was on duty the night of the crime. 3. Vehicle and shift logs show signs of tampering. 4. The crime scene was within Team 14's operational area. The report was approved for background investigation and surveillance. The team began reviewing O'Leary's criminal and personal history. Records showed a 1,987 internal complaint for inappropriate behavior with female staff, resolved internally, without discipline. No criminal record or major violations. He currently lived with his wife in Daly City, participating in firefighter alumni events and community functions. That evening, Tran returned to her office, staring at a screen displaying O'Leary's photo from a 30-year Loma Prieta anniversary event, a silver-haired man in a suit, wearing an old captain's badge. She printed it, placing it beside a 1,989 camera still, a shadowed figure in a firefighter's coat next to Marisol Vega, before she vanished. 2 images, 30 years apart. One real, one a blur, but genetic evidence was closing the gap. In her investigation log, Tran typed, "Subject identified, Raymond Patrick O'Leary. Genetic match confirmed via genealogy." Next step, behavioral verification. On the 28th of April 2023, with approval for an expanded investigation, Detective Linda Tran and the cold case team officially shifted the Marisol Vega case to active review. Their goal was to verify all public service records related to Raymond Patrick O'Leary, identified by genealogical DNA as biologically linked to the crime scene evidence. Tran began by re-examining Team 14's 1,989 SFFD administrative records. In the paper archives, she found a discrepancy. The October 20 night shift log recorded left station 045, returned 02:30. But a weekly summary from the commander's office noted, mission ended 3:10. The times differed by nearly 40 minutes. The signature for O'Leary was in different ink, shakier and smaller, as if added later. Tran requested the SFPD Document Examination Unit analyze the handwriting and ink. Preliminary results confirmed the 2:30 entry was written last, in different ink from the form indicating tampering. Next, Tran examined Engine 14's log, under O'Leary's command. It showed 14 miles traveled, higher than the 5-6 mile average for other teams that night. A fuel report noted, refuel completed, Islais Station, added by hand, inconsistent with the official refueling site, Potrero Yard. Mapping the route, Tran realized Islais Station was near Islais Creek, just hundreds of meters from where Marisol Vega's body was found. This was flagged in the digital file. Vehicle movement inconsistent with assigned patrol area. To strengthen the case, Tran requested E14's insurance and maintenance records from SFFD archives. A November 1,989 repair log noted, minor red paint scratch on rear right side, repainted. The paint, epoxy oxide red matching the 1,989 forensic analysis of paint on a rock near the body. The technician's note added, scratch cause unknown, possibly from patrol collision. Tran logged, red paint match, potential transfer evidence. She contacted 2 living Team 14 members, Thomas Ryan, assistant driver, and Harold Brennan, on duty that night. Ryan, now over 70, living in Sacramento, said his memory of October 20 was hazy but recalled O'Leary telling him to return early, citing personal business. We were back before 2 a.m. I remember, because the station clock hadn't reset after the blackout, he said. Brennan confirmed O'Leary left after returning, saying he was checking Potrero and wasn't seen until morning. Both statements were recorded and added to the file. Compiling the data, Tran saw a clearer picture. O'Leary was in the Mission Potrero area when Marisol left El Faro, 1:05 a.m. His truck deviated 8 miles south, aligning with Islais Creek, where the body was found. The shift log was altered to shorten his absence. The truck's paint matched scene evidence, and 2 colleagues confirmed he left alone. For further verification, Tran contacted the local media archive for 1,989 earthquake photos and articles. A San Francisco Chronicle image from the 30th of October 1989 showed O'Leary among firefighters at Potrero Hill, with engine 14 inches the background. But the photo was odd. Daylight and angles suggested it was taken the next morning, not during the earthquake night, as captioned. A technician confirmed the negative file dated it to October 21, staged after the crime. The article praised O'Leary as a rescue hero, but no evidence showed he performed rescues that night. On May 2, Linda submitted a 34-page report to her superiors, listing administrative discrepancies. Satu, shift log tampered, return time inconsistent. 2. Engine 14 traveled 8 miles beyond normal. 3. Repaired red paint matches scene evidence. 4. Colleagues confirmed O'Leary left alone. 5. Commendation article misdated, likely staged. The report concluded with a recommendation. Request preliminary criminal investigation into falsified public service records and potential involvement in Marisol Vega's 1989 murder. That day, the district attorney's office approved further information gathering, including access to O'Leary's personal assets and financial records. That afternoon, Linda Tran drove to the SFFD headquarters on Mission Street, where O'Leary once worked. The Team 14 room had been renovated, walls freshly painted, but his name remained on the old employee honor board. She studied the row of black and white photos, a silver plaque beneath reading, Captain Raymond P. O'Leary. Service 1974, 2005. Standing in the empty hallway, Tran noted in her book, Fire Department connection established. Timeline confirmed. O'Leary present in Mission District during victim's disappearance. Next, background behavioral and property review. As she left the building, San Francisco's sky was cloaked in a thin fog, much like the damp, cold nights of October 1989. For over 30 years, a tampered shift log and a few unaccounted miles lay dormant in the files now. They were key pieces linking the Mission Fire Station to the Islais Creek waterfront, where Marisol Vega's journey ended. On the 2nd of May 2023, Linda Tran's detailed report on Raymond O'Leary's shift log discrepancies was sent to SFPD's internal analysis team. She knew the next phase wasn't just administrative review, but reconstructing every hour of the 20th of October 1989, the night Marisol Vega vanished. SFFD data confirmed O'Leary commanded Team 14, covering Mission and Potrero Hill. The log showed he and 3 other firefighters left the station at 0:45 to check gas lines, but his teammates, Thomas Ryan and Harold Brennan, told police they returned before 2 a.m., and O'Leary left alone. Cross-checking the route log, Tran found the 8 extra miles driven by Engine 14 were unexplained, and the return time was altered from 3:10 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. The end of shift signature used a different pen, shakily written, clearly added later. She sent the document to the handwriting analysis unit, which concluded the addition is inconsistent with O'Leary's original signature. Digging deeper, Tran contacted SFFD's technical department for engine reports 1797+7D maintenance records. A November report noted, repainted right side, epoxy oxide red, scratched during industrial patrol. This paint matched the 1989 Islais Creek evidence exactly. Comparing crime scene photos, the paint on a nearby rock was the same dull red, with identical chemical composition per the 1989 report. Linda marked this transfer correlation. The old data was aligning. O'Leary's truck left the station, deviated 8 miles, and was reported scratched with matching paint the next morning. For objectivity, Tran had the technical team reconstruct the truck's route using 1989 maps, the logged 14 miles, and the victim's estimated disappearance time. The simulation showed that, leaving at 1 a.m., Engine 14 could reach Mission, stop for 10-15 minutes, head south along 3rd Street to Islais Creek, and return to Potrero Yard near 3 a.m. The distance and timing matched perfectly. The simulation report included a map, a red line tracing the route through 16th Street where El Faro stood. Meanwhile, media and internal records revealed O'Leary was hailed as a rescue hero during the earthquake. But the 30th of October 1989 article was photographed the next morning at Potrero Hill, not the night of the 20th, as captioned. A former SFFD PR employee admitted the story was staged to honor the city's spirit. This meant O'Leary's heroic image, maintained for 3 decades, might stem from a tampered shift and an unverified route. To solidify this, Tran reviewed Engine 14's maintenance logs. A December 1989 entry noted, replaced rear right tire, due to uneven wear. Sending the old tire, still in SFFD storage, to forensics, technicians compared its tread to 1989 crime scene photos and found high similarity. Both were Goodyear F1985, exclusive to 1988, 1990 fire trucks. Tran noted, tire impression consistent with E14 vehicle, probability of coincidence is less than 10%. On May 5, she and a colleague met O'Leary's former teammates for final confirmation. Thomas Ryan confirmed he drove back at 1:55 a.m. O'Leary told him to end the shift early, then drove off alone. Ryan said, I thought he was just checking gas lines, but the next morning he said, all good, no issues. Harold Brennan, a technician, added, when we left, He said he'd check a bar in Mission for civilian status, but no one was allowed to join. This matched Marisol Vega leaving El Faro at 1:05 a.m. The data formed a 42-page report titled The Fire Department Connection. Tran listed 5 key points. 1. O'Leary was on duty the 20th of October 1989, Team 14, covering Mission Potrero. 2. Shift log tampered, departure, and return times inconsistent. 3. Engine K-Tours route deviated white miles toward Islais Creek. 4. Truck paint and tire match scene evidence. 5. 2 teammates confirmed O'Leary left alone during the victim's disappearance window. The report concluded, the suspect likely used his public service role to move through Mission and Islais Creek during the murder time frame. Administrative records show signs of falsification to conceal the actual route. That evening, Tran sent the report to the district attorney's office, recommending a warrant for asset monitoring and additional DNA collection from O'Leary. She printed a copy, saving it digitally under CU 89MR, divided by sub J O'Leary. She added a final note. Fire Department timeline verified. 1:03 a.m. Window confirmed. Next phase, surveillance and behavioral analysis. As she shut down her computer, the late afternoon light from the window fell across her desk, illuminating a 1,989 black and white photo of Team 14 inches front of Engine 14. In the center, Raymond O'Leary smiled confidently, light glinting off the brass badge on his chest. The last thing a witness described 34 years ago as shining before the girl disappeared. Tran stared long, then closed the file. The fragmented pieces of time were connecting, all pointing to one man, the firefighter in the dark October night. On the 8th of May 2023, after submitting the Fire Department Connection Report, Detective Linda Tran received new orders from the district attorney's office. Before using 1989 DNA or evidence in prosecution, she had to verify the chain of custody's legality. A single break in the chain could render the DNA inadmissible, unraveling 30 years of work. Tran began at Hunters Point's old evidence storage, where Box 89MR was found. She requested all transfer logs since its June 1990 sealing. The faded paper log showed A. Gifford, SFPD, as the deliverer and T. McCauley, evidence custodian, as the receiver. The 6th of June 1990 entry listed 12 evidence packages weighing 4.2 kilograms. A note read, stored at Bryant Street, Vault 3, Rack D14. Later entries noted transfers, 1,997, relocated to F22, flood prevention, 2002, transferred to Hunters Point facility. All had storage staff signatures, but none confirmed seal checks. Linda spotted a potential issue. A February 1,997 entry had a smudged receiver's signature, only H. Sun legible. She tracked 1,997 storage staff. After 3 days, HR provided a match. Henry Dobson, now retired. Visiting him in Fremont, Tran showed her credentials and asked about the 1,997 transfer. Dobson vaguely recalled, I signed for some damp cold case boxes. That one might have been in there, but I only checked seals, didn't open them. Showing a photo of Box 89MR, he nodded. That's the plywood type. I remember the red seal, intact. His statement confirmed an unbroken chain, Tran noted. Custody verified through witness confirmation. No evidence tampering observed. Next, she verified the evidence seals. Box 89MR, now in San Mateo's forensic cold storage, bore the 2023 blue tamper-proof tape over the 1,990 red seal. Original photos from March showed 2 SFPD property, do not break seal, labels with Gifford and McCauley's signatures. Comparing the ink to the 1,990 log, they matched perfectly. No signs of tearing, removal, or resealing. The forensic report stated, seals intact, tape oxidation consistent with 30-year storage, no tampering detected. To ensure legality, Linda cross-checked the chain of custody in SFPD's current evidence system. Post 2010 items had QR codes. She manually entered 89 MR's data, establishing the chain. 1. Collected at 1,989 scene. 2. Handed to forensics 1,990. 3. Stored at Bryant Street 1,991,997. 4. Moved to Hunters Point 2002. 5. Rediscovered and transferred to San Mateo 2023. The system assigned. Chain integrity. Verified divided by level A. For court admissibility, DNA required third-party validation. On May 12, Linda arranged a meeting with the San Francisco Chief Medical Examiner and California DOJ Forensic Division. Dr. Samuel Chen, San Mateo, presented seal comparison photos, evidence weight checks, and sampling dates, stating, "No evidence suggests the items were opened, replaced, or contaminated. Extracted DNA is fully reliable." The DOJ representative agreed, issuing a chain of custody certified, May 2023 certificate. Tran added the certificate to the digital file and drafted a separate report for the DA's office. In her assessment, she wrote, "Chain of custody fully maintained, compliant with Federal Regulation 28 CFR Section 79.3, no violations or discrepancies. All biological samples deemed legally admissible for investigation and trial." Next, she cross-checked the evidence against the 1,989 inventory. All codes SC1 to SC12 matched the remaining bags, except SC9, damp paper scrap, noted as disposed due to mold contamination, 1,991. This had a signed Gifford memo, not affecting file integrity. Total weight differed by 0.03 kilograms, within natural evaporation error. The final report, completed at 11:10 p.m. on May 13, concluded, "Evidence authentication complete. Chain integrity, 100%. Admissibility, approved." The next day, at a cold case unit meeting, Linda presented the results to investigators and DA representatives. On the projector, she displayed the evidence timeline, from sealing at Islais Creek to 2023 DNA reanalysis. The unit chief confirmed, "Evidence meets legal standards. We can proceed with a criminal investigation of Raymond O'Leary." After over 33 years, this marked the moment Marisol Vega's case shed its pending review status. That afternoon, Linda returned to San Mateo's storage, where Box 89MR sat in a metal cabinet. She signed the access log, touching the cold seal, the faded property of SFPD, still clear after 3 decades. In her notebook she wrote, "Chain verified, evidence stands. The box waited 3-4 years to speak, and now it finally can." On the 16th of May 2023, with the chain of custody legally verified, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office issued a warrant for surveillance and indirect DNA collection from Raymond Patrick O'Leary. All actions were discreet to avoid media leaks, as he remained a respected retired fire captain. Detective Linda Tran led the surveillance team with 2 veteran cold case investigators. Goal: establish O'Leary's routines and collect non-invasive DNA to compare with the Vega case evidence. O'Leary lived in a quiet single-story home on St. Francis Boulevard in Daly City with his wife, Helen, 67. Neighbors described him as upstanding, attends church regularly, brings coffee home every morning. This habit shaped the surveillance plan. For 2 days, the team used remote cameras, tracking O'Leary leaving at 6:45 a.m., driving a silver Toyota Tacoma to Pete's Coffee at Westlake Shopping Center. He ordered a takeaway cappuccino, stayed under 10 minutes, and discarded the cup in a nearby trash bin. On May 19, the team acted. Investigator Marcus Bell, posing as a sanitation worker, collected the trash after O'Leary left. The Pete's cup bore light lipstick and another lip mark likely his and his wife's. It was sealed in an evidence bag, coded SUBJOLEARYCUP, divided by 05 to 19. Linda signed the collection log, delivering it to San Mateo's forensic lab that day. However, The lab reported the coffee cup DNA yield was too low, producing an incomplete profile, insufficient for comparison. They advised collecting a personal item with more epithelial cells. Linda secured a supplemental DA warrant for indirect public sample collection, including a toothbrush or razor, if accessible. 3 days later, the team tracked O'Leary at Daly City's YMCA, where he swam Tuesdays and Thursdays. Cameras captured him using a personal towel, water bottle, and electric razor in the locker room. After his session, a janitor retrieved a discarded tissue with sweat and beard stubble from the trash. It was carefully sealed in a cold bag, coded SUBJOLEARYTOWEL, divided by 05 to 23. Preliminary results after 2 days showed the male DNA fully matched the 1,989 cigarette filter profile. San Mateo's lab sent a rapid report to SFPD with a 99.999.999.8% match probability, 1 inch 500 million. Reading the conclusion, Tran felt her chest tighten. After 34 years, the man in the firefighter's coat from the 20th of October 1989 had a name, age, and address. Legal protocol required 2 independent samples for confirmation before prosecution. Tran planned a second collection from household trash. On May 27 night, the team parked a service vehicle a block from O'Leary's home. When the city garbage truck arrived, they accessed his bin, retrieving 3 items: a disposable razor, a plastic straw, and a damp cigarette butt. All were sealed separately, coded SUBJOLEARYSET2 divided by 05 to 27, and sent to the lab within 2 hours to prevent degradation. On May 30, the lab confirmed DNA from the razor and cigarette butt fully matched profile, FGG Vega 202301 from the 1,989 red fibers and menthol cigarette filter. Both independent samples were identical, with a mismatch probability below 1 inch 10 billion. The report was printed, stamped, confirmed genetic match. After receiving the results, Linda called an urgent meeting with the DA's office. She presented the surveillance process, proving sample collection legality. California law allows DNA from public trash without consent. Lead prosecutor Robert Klein reviewed the report and concluded, genetic evidence is definitive. Recommend proceeding with arrest warrant preparation. Before filing for prosecution, they ensured surveillance wasn't leaked and DNA integrity wasn't contested. Tran requested the lab record the extraction process on video, storing all raw data as forensic digital evidence record, FDER, to avoid legal disputes. Dr. Chen agreed, completing this on May 31, sealing an encrypted USB backup. Meanwhile, the surveillance team continued monitoring O'Leary. They noted his routine lifestyle, showing no suspicion. On the morning of June 1, cameras captured him watering plants in his yard, glancing at San Francisco's foggy sky, a scene eerily similar to the morning after the 1989 earthquake. Watching from afar, Linda knew that in just days, he would face what he had buried. That evening, in the cold case unit office, she reviewed footage from the first surveillance, the Pete's coffee cup tossed in the trash, a mundane act that unlocked the truth. In her internal report, she typed the final line, the 31st of May 2023, surveillance complete, indirect DNA collection successful. Profile confirmed identical to 1,989 crime scene sample. Subject, Raymond Patrick O'Leary. Next step, warrant request. As she saved the file, the screen reflected the yellow streetlights from Hunter's Point. On her desk, the DNA report printout was still warm from the photocopier. Linda flipped to the last page, rereading the conclusion. Genetic correspondence, 100% match to crime scene DNA, sample 89, MR. A cold line holding 34 years of broken silence, and for the first time, O'Leary was written next to primary suspect in the Marisol Vega case. On the 2nd of June 2023, the San Mateo Forensic Lab finalized a 32-page report, coded FG, Vega 202301 divided by sub J. O'Leary. sealed and delivered to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office and SFPD Cold Case Unit. The first page's conclusion was brief but definitive. Full genetic correspondence confirmed between 1,989 evidence and 2,023 subject DNA. Below, the statistical probability, 1 inch 10.5 billion, meaning no chance of random match. Detective Linda Tran attended an urgent meeting that day at the Cold Case Unit headquarters. On the table was a color printout of the STR chart, 21 markers perfectly matching O'Leary's DNA, with a 1,989 menthol cigarette filter. Dr. Samuel Chen, representing the forensic lab, presented to the investigators and prosecutor, Robert Klein. Not only do the loci match, he said, but there's a rare DYS3892 marker present in only 0.003% of North America's population. This is a unique genetic trait, impossible to fabricate. Chen pointed to the comparison chart, 2 signal bands overlapping perfectly. Linda sat stunned, knowing this was the case's most decisive evidence after 34 buried years. After Chen left, Klein spoke. With this, we have sufficient probable cause to request an arrest warrant for Raymond Patrick O'Leary on first-degree murder charges. The room fell silent for a moment. Linda then recapped the case's logic, from the evidence box found in Hunter's Point to today's DNA results. Each step connected like a red thread. Male DNA extracted from 1,989 red fibers and cigarette filter. Genealogical tracing linked to the O'Leary family. Raymond Patrick O'Leary, fire captain, on duty the 20th of October 1989. Tampered shift logs. Fire truck deviating to Islais Creek. Truck paint and tire matching scene evidence. 2023 personal item DNA, fully matching crime scene samples. Klein nodded, instructing her to prepare an arrest packet. A standard set of legal evidence, forensic reports, surveillance logs, and chain of custody confirmations for a federal judge within 48 hours. In that day's internal memo, the Cold Case Unit noted, Subject O'Leary, probable cause established via DNA match and corroborating circumstantial evidence, recommended immediate warrant issuance. That afternoon, Linda and a legal technician reviewed the entire file before court submission. Every detail was cross-checked. Signatures, dates, transfer times. No link was missing. She placed the nearly 400-page file in an envelope, sealed with a red confidential stamp, and personally delivered it to Judge Maria DeLuca's office, who handled special prosecution warrants. On June 3 morning, a closed hearing took place in the old second-floor courtroom. DeLuca read the report, pausing at the DNA section. A 1 in 10 billion probability is indisputable, she said. But is there any chance of contamination or chain of custody breach? Linda clearly outlined each verification step, from 1,989 sealing to 2,023 re-examination. All stages had independent certifications. DeLuca nodded, signing the arrest warrant, effective immediately. Simultaneously, the Cold Case Unit held a tactical meeting with the Special Arrest Team. Target, Raymond Patrick O'Leary, 71, Daly City resident. The location was deemed low risk due to his age and lack of weapons. Planned action, 6 a.m., June 5, when he left for coffee. The operation was codenamed Operation Ember, symbolizing the lingering spark of an old case. On June 4 evening, Linda sat alone at her desk, studying the 1,989 Islais Creek crime scene photo. Mud, ligature, and a tiny cigarette filter items no one thought would become an accusation 34 years later. She recalled surveillance footage. O'Leary, casually sipping coffee, discarding the cup, unaware it reopened a door to the past. In her notebook, she wrote a final line before closing. The 6th of March, 2023. DNA confirmation final. Justice within reach. The next morning, an SFPD internal bulletin updated the case status. Case 89H142, cold case upgraded to active homicide with confirmed suspect. Box 89MR was resealed, labeled evidence utilized for conviction pursuit, retained permanently. Inside, the old evidence red fibers, menthol cigarette filter, nail fragments now held new meaning. No longer forgotten questions, they were the foundation of justice. At the DA's office, Robert Klein finalized a legal summary for internal media. After over 3 decades, advancements in DNA technology and genealogical investigation have identified the suspect responsible for Marisol Vega's death. Biological, public service, and physical evidence support a near-absolute probability of guilt. On June 4 evening, Linda stood on the headquarters balcony overlooking the bay. Thick fog and red lights from the Bay Bridge reflected on the water, like the bloodstains on Islais Creek's banks years ago. She knew tomorrow, the city would wake to a name once hailed as a firefighting hero, now called something else, a murderer. At 11:47 p.m., she received a text from Klein. 0600 sharp. Linda closed her phone, reopened the digital file, and marked the final status. DNA match verified, probable cause established, Operation Ember authorized. In Bryant Street's evidence storage, Box 89MR sat quietly, but for the first time in 34 years, its contents no longer belonged to the past. They had become the present and would shape a man's future who thought his October 1989 secret was buried forever. On the 5th of June 2023, as fog blanketed Westlake, SFPD unmarked vehicles parked outside 1421 St. Francis Boulevard, Daly City. 3 plainclothes detectives stepped out: Linda Tran, Marcus Bell, and Sergeant Drew Holman. At 6 a.m., the wooden door opened. Raymond Patrick O'Leary, 71, in a gray sweater and khakis, coffee cup in hand, froze upon seeing them. Tran spoke calmly. "Mr. O'Leary, we're with criminal investigations. We need you to come to headquarters to clarify details about an old case." He frowned, glanced around, then nodded. "All right, let me grab a jacket." In interrogation room 4 at SFPD headquarters, the air was cold and still. The camera rolled, the wall clock showing 8:12 a.m. Linda sat across from O'Leary, a thick file labeled Case 89H142, Vega, Marisol before her. Beside her was Bell, the lead questioner, a seasoned detective with a steady voice. "Mr. O'Leary," Bell began, "we're reviewing unsolved 1,989 cases. We need to verify some public service records, and we hope you'll cooperate." O'Leary nodded, eyes wary but composed. "If it's about the earthquake night, I'm open. I don't think anything's off." Linda slid forward a black and white photo of the Islais Creek crime scene, where Marisol Vega's body was found. "Recognize this area?" "Sure, the Southern Industrial Zone. My team was sent there a few times post-earthquake." Tran continued. "Records show your Team 14 left the station at 0:45 a.m. on the 20th of October 1989, returning at 2:30. But the weekly report says 3:10, and your signature uses different ink." O'Leary chuckled lightly. "That was 30 years ago, who remembers? Maybe I signed later. It was a long shift." Linda opened another sheet. Engine 14's log. "Your truck logged 8 extra miles beyond the usual route. Why?" He shrugged. "We checked gas lines. It was chaotic. We took detours." Bell interjected, voice low. "The issue is, a November maintenance log shows engine 14 had a red paint scratch on the right side. That paint matches what was found at Islais Creek, where a woman, Marisol Vega, was found dead." O'Leary looked up, smile gone. "I don't know who that is." Linda showed a second photo, Marisol's missing person file. Black hair, radiant smile. "Sure, you never saw her?" "She worked at Faro and Mission, where your team patrolled." He paused, then answered slowly. "No, I don't know her." Tran presented a timeline from GPS route simulation. Calculations show, if engine 14 left at 0:45 and returned at 3:10, you had nearly 2.5 hours. Mission to Islais Creek takes 10 minutes. Where were you the rest of the time? O'Leary met her gaze. "I told you. I was working." I don't recall every minute. Linda leaned forward, voice firmer. Did you know that night was one of the few with no radio reports? No logs, no comms. Why the gap? He paused, then said, I don't know. Maybe the equipment failed. Linda placed a sealed manila envelope on the table, pulling out one sheet, DNA report. F.G.G. Vega 202301. She spoke slowly, each word heavy. We have DNA from the 1989 case, taken from red fibers, firefighter coat material. It's male DNA. We compared it to samples from your personal items. Result, perfect match. Mismatch odds, 1 inch, 10 billion. The room froze. O'Leary stared at the paper, breathing heavily but maintaining composure. I don't believe it. You've got it wrong. I worked many rescues. My DNA could have mixed somewhere. Linda countered. No. It came from a menthol cigarette filter and fibers in the victim's hair. You never smoked menthol? O'Leary looked away, silent. Bell checked the clock, then asked, Do you recall leaving the station alone? Your teammates said you sent them back early. O'Leary replied curtly, They're mistaken. I didn't ditch my shift. Linda pulled another document, photos of the original and altered signatures. Forensics confirmed the 2:30 a.m. entry used different ink, added later. Care to explain why your own log was changed? He snapped. It's been 30 years. Someone could have tampered with it. Bell said calmly, No one did. We have 1,990 photos of the original, you wrote it. O'Leary clenched his fists, face paling. After a moment, he exhaled deeply. What do you want me to say? I gave my life to this city. I saved people, didn't hurt anyone. Linda looked at him, voice softening. We believe you saved many, but that night, a woman was strangled and dumped at the creek. Evidence puts you there. Just tell the truth. He leaned back, sighing, eyes to the ceiling. There's nothing to say. I don't know her. I want a lawyer. At his words, Linda nodded slightly. Bell stopped the recorder, the clock showing 9:27. The log noted, Subject requested counsel. Interrogation concluded. In the observation room behind the glass, Prosecutor Klein stood still, eyes heavy. He won't say more, Klein assessed. Linda replied quietly, He doesn't need to. The DNA said it all. That afternoon, the cold case unit's internal report updated. Interrogation completed. Subject denies knowledge of victim but unable to account for time discrepancy. Direct DNA evidence confirmed. Recommendation: proceed to formal charge. At the report's end, under Linda Tran's signature, a handwritten note in blue ink read, 34 years of silence broken not by confession, but by science. Outside, San Francisco's sky was cloaked in thick fog, just like the night Marisol Vega vanished. In the empty interrogation room, O'Leary's chair bore his handprints on the cold metal armrests. 3 decades ago, he left his shift early, disappearing into a gap between reports. 3 decades later, that gap became the evidence no excuse could fill. On the 6th of June 2023, the day after the failed interrogation, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office officially approved an arrest warrant for Raymond Patrick O'Leary under California Penal Code Section 187 first-degree murder with special circumstances. The warrant included rights to search his residence, personal vehicles, and any property potentially holding related evidence. Receiving the red-stamped warrant executed by order of court, Linda Tran knew 34 years of waiting had reached its end. Target: 1421, St. Francis Boulevard, Daly City. Action time: 5:30 a.m., June 7, when the suspect typically left for coffee. The operation was internally named Operation Ember 2. In the pre-dawn fog, unmarked vehicles parked 2 blocks from the house. A team of 6 split into 2 groups, one monitoring the front, one covering the back. Linda and Marcus Bell held command positions. At 5:32, O'Leary opened the door, wearing a sweater, keys in hand. Linda stepped forward, voice clear. Raymond Patrick O'Leary, you're under arrest by California court order for first-degree murder. Please raise your hands and turn around. He froze, unresisting, face calm, but eyes heavy. Handcuffs clicked in the damp fog. 30 years, he muttered. I knew this would come back. Police read his Miranda rights and escorted him to the vehicle. Meanwhile, the forensic team entered the house. The search warrant allowed seizure of items, documents, or clothing tied to 1,989. The small, tidy home held a basement filled with career mementos, a helmet, old extinguisher, and cartons labeled SFFD 1,980, 1,990. In a corner, technicians found a 1,989 firefighter coat FRP 200 model, matching the flame-retardant fabric from the Islais Creek red fibers. It hung in a nylon bag, E14, faintly printed on the shoulder. Linda inspected it. A name tag inside read, R. O'Leary, and the sleeve had a darkened, frayed patch. Under fluorescent light, faint red paint glimmered matching the 1,989 evidence report's paint. She ordered photos, paint, and fiber samples collected, and sealed them as O'Leary jacket divided by 06 to 07. In the garage, beside a toolbox and old table, investigators found a silver 1,988 Ford F-150 pickup, unregistered since 2006. Dust-covered, its original paint was red oxide identical to Engine 14's. Underneath, old chip paint and rough patches suggested preserved material. Linda requested a UV scan. The rear right bumper showed an old scratched red paint mark, matching the 1,989 maintenance log's noted location. A technician scraped a sample, sealed as O'Leary truck, divided by 06 to 07. Inside the truck, they collected additional items: a Zippo lighter, engraved with the SFFD logo, a stained pack of old menthol cigarettes, and a worn, folded San Francisco map with red pen marks around the Mission District and Islais Creek. Linda stood still, staring at the map, her heart heavy as if everything was aligning into undeniable evidence. The investigation team continued searching O'Leary's personal file cabinet in his study. Among commendations and articles praising the Loma Prieta hero, they found an envelope containing old Polaroid photos. O'Leary, with teammates by a fire truck, some taken at Potrero Hill, the last, blurry and off-center, showed a small wooden bridge over Islais Creek where Marisol's body was found. No date, but the back read, Night Patrol, Oct. 89. Linda held the photo to the light, her face cold. All evidence was inventoried, sealed, and transferred to the San Mateo Forensic Lab that day. A rapid forensic report confirmed the paint on the jacket and truck matched the 1,989 crime scene paint's molecular structure. The supplemental report stated, no significant degradation, identical pigment composition, iron oxide, and epoxy resin ratio, 87 to 13. This became the final piece, closing the physical evidence chain. Meanwhile, at SFPD headquarters, O'Leary was placed in a holding cell. He said nothing, only requesting a call to his lawyer. When Linda arrived to sign the arrest log, he looked up, meeting her eyes. You think you've found the truth? All you have are numbers. Linda replied softly. Sometimes the truth is the numbers, Mr. O'Leary. He gave a faint smile, nodding slightly. You're too young to understand justice is never absolute. Outside the hallway, media caught wind from an anonymous source. Former fire captain arrested in 1980, 9 murder case. The DA's office confirmed the arrest, but withheld details. By afternoon, major news channels reported. Arrest made in 1989 San Francisco cold case. Former fire captain charged. Images of a silver-haired O'Leary in handcuffs aired on evening news, shocking the public. In the cold case unit's June 7 internal report, Linda Tran summarized. Execution of arrest warrant, completed at 5:32 a.m. Subject cooperative. Fire-resistant jacket, and 1,988 Ford truck seized. Paint samples confirmed match to 1,989 scene evidence. Chain of custody maintained. Case upgraded to active prosecution. That evening, she returned to Hunter's Point Storage, where it all began. Box 89MR remained in the metal cabinet, now bearing a new label, Resolved, June 2023. Linda touched the lid, recalling the foggy morning she found it among thousands of old boxes. Back then, she thought she was just cataloging evidence. Now, it had led a city back to October 1989, where a red fire truck stopped by the water's edge, and justice was finally set right. On the 10th of June 2023, 3 days after Raymond Patrick O'Leary's arrest, the San Mateo Forensic Lab began the final phase, reconstructing the Marisol Vega case's evidence chain to confirm the physical, biological, chemical link between the suspect and the crime scene. This rare integrated analysis combined 3 fields, DNA, materials, science, and trace chemistry with one goal, proving the 1,989 evidence, 2023 jacket and truck, and O'Leary's DNA, all shared a single source. Dr. Samuel Chen, overseeing the forensic program, started by laying out the case file and evidence on a long lab table. At one end, the 1,989 red fibers and menthol cigarette filter. At the other, the FRP 200 firefighter jacket labeled R. O'Leary, and paint and rust samples from the 1,988 Ford truck. On the wall, an enlarged Islais Creek scene photo marked evidence, locations. Chen told the technicians, "We're not just confirming matches, we're rebuilding that night." 1. Physical analysis. Material correlation. The first team used a scanning electron microscope, SEM, to compare the red fibers from the victim's hair with the jacket's fabric. The screen showed both had identical 70% polyester, 30% cotton weave, with 112 T divided by inch thread density. Notably, both samples' FRP 200 flame retardant coating contained 0.6 micron zinc oxide particles, a proprietary formula from Fire Shield Fabric Co., used for SFFD uniforms from 1,987, 1,991. Chen concluded, fabric source identical. Probability of random match is less than 0.05%. Another finding clarified, a 6 centimeters black hair on the jacket stitching. Not O'Leary's, his hair was mostly gray. Analysis revealed mitochondrial DNA matching Marisol Vega's profile. The report noted in red, victim's hair found on suspect's jacket. 2. Chemical analysis, chemical correlation, Concurrently, the materials chemistry team compared the epoxy oxide red paint from the crime scene rock, jacket, and Ford truck underbelly. Raman spectroscopy showed identical spectra, all contained Fe2O3, iron oxide 3, and epoxy resin at an 87:13 ratio. Unique to Rust Pro 300 industrial paint, used for SFFD's E-Series fire trucks in 1,988 1,990. Isotope analysis confirmed the same Arizona iron ore source per the city's contract supplier. Chen noted, paint chemistry identical across scene, jacket, and vehicle. Likely physical transfer during contact. In other words, when O'Leary leaned or struggled, paint from his truck or jacket transferred to the rock, and Marisol's hair clung to his jacket. 3. Biological analysis. Biological correlation. The genetics team re-verified O'Leary's DNA against the 1,989 evidence. Results again showed a perfect match at 21 STR loci and 600,000 SNP markers. The report stated, combined DNA index probability, CPI, is greater than 1/10 billion. Both nuclear and mitochondrial DNA match confirmed. Additionally, mitochondrial DNA from the jacket's hair fully matched the victim. This ruled out contamination. If Marisol's hair was in O'Leary's jacket, and his DNA was in the 1989 evidence, they had direct contact at or near the crime's time. 4. Event reconstruction. Using physical and temporal data, Chen and Linda Tran reconstructed the 20th of October 1989. Asterisk. Asterisk. 10 a.m. Asterisk. Asterisk. O'Leary left the station alone, driving engine 14 to mission for gas line patrol. Asterisk. Asterisk. 15 a.m. Asterisk. Asterisk. Marisol Vega left El Faro, seen with a man in a firefighter's coat. Asterisk. Asterisk. 1:21:40 a.m. Asterisk. Asterisk. Victim subdued, struggled. Her hair caught on the suspect's jacket, paint scraped off, red fibers tangled in her hair. Asterisk. Asterisk. 2 a.m. Asterisk. Asterisk. O'Leary drove to Islais Creek, dumped the body, truck paint scraping the rock. Asterisk. Asterisk. 2:30 a.m. Asterisk. Asterisk. He returned, altered the shift log, and made no radio reports. The reconstruction chart displayed timestamps and arrows linking DNA, paint, and jacket fibers. Chen said quietly, "Each evidence layer is a thread together. They shaped that night." 5. Asterisk. Asterisk. Conclusion and prosecution report. Asterisk. Asterisk. On June 13, the San Mateo Forensic Lab completed the 98-page integrated forensic correlation report with 47 charts. The final conclusion read, "Physical evidence, fibers, paint, tire, proves direct contact between the suspect's uniform, vehicle, and crime scene. Biological evidence, DNA, hair, confirms the suspect's presence and contact with the victim. Chemical data supports the physical event sequence. No chance of random coincidence. Combined factors. Probability O'Leary is not the perpetrator is less than 1 in 10 billion. Dr. Chen signed, stamped, and sent the original to the DA's office with an encrypted digital copy. In the transfer log, Linda Tran wrote, "All forensic domains confirm same origin. Evidence integrity preserved." That afternoon, at the DA's office, Robert Klein read the conclusion, looking up at Linda, 34 years, "And it's finally aligned." She replied, "No, it's not aligned until the jury hears these numbers." Leaving the room, Linda glanced through the large window at the bay. The sunset cast a deep red on the water, the color of that fire truck's paint. She knew this report wasn't just a case's end, but proof that time, when recorded right, has its own memory. And this time, that memory told the full truth. On the 20th of July 2023, the case of Times People of the State of California v. Raymond Patrick O'Leary Times reached its pre-trial hearing at the San Francisco County Courthouse. This critical step determined whether the 1,989 DNA and physical evidence were legally admissible and sufficient. In the old third-floor Hall of Justice courtroom, the gallery was packed with reporters, citizens, and former SFFD colleagues who once saw O'Leary as a hero. The defendant, now 71, appeared in a gray prison uniform, silver hair, face stern but eyes defiant. Beside him was defense attorney Martin Clay, renowned for old case defenses. The prosecution, led by Robert Klein with Detective Linda Tran as the key witness, sat at the front. Clay opened aggressively, attacking the evidence's validity. "Your Honor, we're discussing a case over 34 years old. Evidence sat in a paper box for 3 decades, moved multiple times, through dampness, handled by dozens of staff. No one can guarantee today's DNA wasn't contaminated or swapped. I request the court exclude all DNA evidence due to custody violations." He held up a file. No cameras, no living witnesses, just paper seals and statistics. Klein rose, voice calm but firm. "Your Honor, the case's age is why we rely on DNA technology unavailable in 1989. The entire chain of custody was independently verified by 3 forensic agencies: SFPD, San Mateo, and California DOJ. The 1,990 seals remain intact, with continuous chain documentation. No signs of opening, tampering, or alteration." He pointed to Linda Tran. "Detective Tran personally found Box 89, MR, at Hunter's Point and oversaw its re-examination. She'll testify every sample was handled per current federal standards." Judge Maria De Luca, who signed O'Leary's arrest warrant, sat sternly behind the bench, asking, "Does the forensic lab confirm sample integrity independently?" Klein presented the California DOJ Forensic Division certificate, dated the 12th of May 2023, chain of custody certified, integrity level A. DeLuca scanned it, then looked at Clay. "Mr. Clay, this confirms no custody breaks. How do you counter?" Clay replied sharply, "We don't dispute signatures, but after 30 years, physical reliability can't be absolutely proven. Temperature or humidity changes could cause variations." Klein immediately called Dr. Samuel Chen to testify. As San Mateo's lead forensic scientist, Chen swore in and detailed, samples were sealed in dry conditions, stored below 20 degrees Celsius. Analysis showed no DNA degradation or contamination markers. We compared the sequence to a blank control negative, meaning no cross-contamination. This is DOJ approved and reproducible. He looked at Clay. Science doesn't rely on human memory but on data and sequence. These numbers don't lie. Clay pressed. You claim the DNA came from a 1,989 menthol cigarette filter. Any proof it belonged to the perpetrator, not blown there by wind? Chen replied. The filter was under the victim's hair, less than 60 centimeters from the body, collected with blood and red fibers. We tested surrounding soil moisture, pH, and sediment matched the ground beneath her. It couldn't be a stray item. Linda Tran was called next. She recounted finding Box 89MR, verifying the chain of custody, and overseeing sample handling, transport, and analysis. She concluded, "I saw Sergeant Alan Gifford's original signature on the seal. That box was never opened since 1990 until I did it." The room fell silent. Clay reviewed his file, then shifted. "Detective Tran, do you have witness testimony proving Mr. O'Leary met the victim?" Linda answered directly, "No. But science proves he touched her, and that's worth more than words." The hearing lasted nearly 8 hours. Material, chemical, and DNA experts testified, all confirming, samples intact, data matched. The prosecution presented a slide of the timeline and evidence, hair, paint, jacket, truck, and 21 locus DNA alignment. Robert Klein concluded, "We're not judging memories, we're judging truth preserved in evidence. That truth endures, untouched by time." At day's end, Judge DeLuca asked both sides to rise. Her voice was clear, decisive. After reviewing all documents, expert testimony, and chain of custody verification, the court finds the DNA, physical, and chemical evidence intact and admissible for the jury. The defense's exclusion request is denied. The trial of Times State of California v. Raymond Patrick O'Leary Times is set for the 15th of September 2023. A low murmur rippled through the courtroom. Clay sat down, his face stone cold. O'Leary tilted his head, glancing at Linda across the lawyer's table, his eyes a mix of anger and exhaustion. Linda met his gaze with calm resolve, not victorious or defeated, but as if affirming that the numbers, fibers, and paint traces had passed their greatest test, time. Outside the courthouse, the media erupted with headlines, 1,989 DNA evidence upheld, Marisol Vega case heads to trial. In the cold case unit's internal log, Linda wrote her final note, "Pre-trial ruling, evidence admissible. The box has spoken, and the court listened." On the 15th of September 2023, the Times State of California v. Raymond Patrick O'Leary Times trial began at the San Francisco County Superior Court. Over 3 decades after that fateful night, Courtroom 2, host to hundreds of major cases, was packed. Reporters, TV crews, and former SFFD colleagues filled the seats. At the defendant's table, Raymond Patrick O'Leary, 71, wore a dark suit at his lawyer's request, his silver hair neatly combed. He sat upright, eyes fixed on Judge Maria DeLuca, who had signed his arrest warrant 4 months earlier. For the prosecution, Robert Klein opened with a concise, powerful statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case reminds us that justice has no expiration date. In 1989, a woman named Marisol Vega was strangled and dumped at Islais Creek. The killer vanished into the night. But his biological traces, didn't they? Remained on fibers, a cigarette filter, and the victim's clothing. 34 years later, science named that man Raymond Patrick O'Leary, captain of Fire Team 14, on duty the night she was killed. Klein projected a black and white 1989 crime scene photo, followed by images of the FRP 200 firefighter jacket and the 1988 Ford truck. He said, "Everything points to the same place, same night, same man." He then detailed the timeline. Marisol leaving El Faro at 1:05 a.m., seen with a man in a firefighter's coat, until her body was found 11 days later at Islais Creek. Evidence unfolded like a chain of logic. DNA, paint traces, truck route, tampered shift log, and teammates' testimony confirming O'Leary left alone. The defense, led by Martin Clay, countered with a familiar tactic, sowing doubt. In his opening, he told the jury, "We're trying a man who saved hundreds during the Loma Prieta earthquake." 34 years later, he's accused based on DNA no one can absolutely prove is uncontaminated. Ladies and gentlemen, science isn't divine. It's run by humans, and humans make mistakes. He paused, glancing at O'Leary. "My client is a victim of fading memory and blind faith in technology." The trial entered its second week as the prosecution called forensic experts. First was Dr. Samuel Chen, head of San Mateo's forensic team. He presented DNA results with a genetic marker diagram. The 1989 scene sample perfectly matches O'Leary's 2023 DNA. The mismatch odds are 1 in 10 billion. No signs of contamination or mixing. Clay objected. "Dr. Chen, can you guarantee the 1989 DNA wasn't mixed with hundreds of other samples in storage for 30 years? Chen replied without hesitation. "Yes. Samples were sealed in separate glass tubes, verified intact by DOJ. We ran negative controls on blanks, completely clean." He looked up. "Science isn't faith, it's verification." Next, material chemist Dr. Laura Hines confirmed the paint from the crime scene, and O'Leary's jacket had identical compositions, matching the iron oxide epoxy ratio of Rust Pro 300 paint used by SFFD in 1988. "No other commercial source had that formula," she said. "We also found traces of Furon 12 anti-rust coating exclusive to E-Series fire trucks." When Klein asked, "Could this paint come from another source in the city?" she replied, "Virtually impossible." Finally, Linda Tran took the witness stand. She recounted discovering Box 89MR, verifying seals, reanalyzing DNA, and the evidence chain leading to O'Leary. "We didn't rely on luck," she said. "We relied on traces he left behind, which never fade." Clay pressed her. "Did you ever see my client at the scene? Did anyone see him commit the crime?" Linda met his gaze. "No. But I saw his DNA there. And DNA doesn't lie." For the defense, Clay called a rebuttal witness, Dr. Henry Cobb, a retired DNA expert. He argued that DNA can linger on objects for years and mix from other sources. Under cross-examination, Cobb admitted he hadn't reviewed this case's data, and his conclusions were general assumptions. Klein countered by displaying the STR chart, highlighting the difference between single-source and multi-source DNA. "Here, we have 21 markers perfectly aligned, no noise, no overlap. That only happens with one person's DNA." In the third week, the jury viewed a simulation of Engine 14's route on the 20th of October 1989. A red line on the screen traced the 8-mile deviation from Mission to Islais Creek, matching 1,989 fuel consumption records. Klein said, "There's no reason a fire truck would be there at 2 a.m. unless the driver had a private purpose." He turned to the defendant. "Mr. O'Leary, care to explain?" Clay objected, but DeLuca allowed O'Leary a brief statement. He stood, voice trembling. "I didn't kill anyone. I was doing my job." Klein replied, "If you were doing your job, why was your DNA in the victim's hair?" O'Leary didn't answer. The room fell silent. In the final days, the prosecution recalled Chen and Hines to reinforce authenticity. Chen emphasized. O'Leary's DNA was found on two independent 1,989 items, red fibers, and a cigarette filter. Both match perfectly. This can't be random or contaminated. It's direct contact. DeLuca asked. Are you certain? Chen replied. Absolutely, Your Honor. The trial closed its fourth week in heavy silence. The prosecution rested. The defense had no strategy left but to appeal to sympathy. Clay told the jury, my client may have made mistakes in life, but the cruelest thing is accusing him of something he no longer recalls, based on a decade past. Klein countered in closing, ladies and gentlemen, memories may decay, but evidence doesn't. The truth remains, intact, waiting to be acknowledged. As the judge's gavel fell on the final day, everyone understood. The legal battle was now a matter of reason. The DNA, paint, and travel timeline painted a complete picture. Only one step remained: the verdict to determine if justice could truly overcome 34 years of silence. On the 12th of October 2023, after 4 weeks of trial and 2 days of deliberation, the 12-member San Francisco County jury returned to the courtroom. The air was thick, silent. Before Judge Maria DeLuca lay a sealed envelope labeled *Verdict. People v. O'Leary*. Prosecutor Robert Klein and Detective Linda Tran sat in the front row, eyes on the bench. Across from them, Raymond Patrick O'Leary sat upright, hands clasped, uncuffed. His silver hair and aged face held the faint resolve of a former commander. After 34 years, he was again center stage, not as a hero, but as a defendant in a murder case the city watched closely. Judge DeLuca asked, has the jury reached a verdict? The foreperson, a middle-aged biology teacher, stood, voice firm. Your Honor, we have reached a unanimous verdict. She handed the envelope to the clerk. DeLuca opened it, reading clearly, each word halting the room's heartbeats. In the case of Times, people of the state of California, Raymond Patrick O'Leary*, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree murder with aggravating factors of intent and premeditation. The room froze. A soft gasp came from the gallery. Marisol Vega, the victim's sister, who had flown from Texas for the final hearing. She covered her mouth, tears falling silently. O'Leary closed his eyes, head slightly bowed, silent. Beside him, Martin Clay placed a hand on his shoulder, signaling quiet. When the judge asked if he wished to speak before sentencing, O'Leary shook his head, voice low and raspy. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just didn't think they'd remember this long, Klein responded, not with words but with a look not of victory, but of a journey's end. Judge DeLuca delivered the sentence. Given the severity and deliberate nature of the crime, under California Penal Code Section 187, the court sentences Raymond Patrick O'Leary to life imprisonment without parole. The defendant will serve at California State Prison, San Quentin. The court also orders all evidence, forensic reports, and DNA records transferred to the National Archive for cold case training. The gavel struck 3 times dry, heavy, final. The Marisol Vega case was officially closed. Outside, reporters swarmed as police escorted O'Leary to the prison van. He didn't resist. Glancing back once at Linda Tran on the courthouse steps. Amid flashing cameras, their eyes met briefly. She didn't see a killer, only a man crushed by his own secret's weight. The van drove off, leaving a noisy crowd and a courthouse sign glinting in the noon sun. Justice served. That afternoon, the DA's office held a press conference. Robert Klein stated, justice came late, but it never left. We thank DNA technology and investigators who never gave up. Asked what made this case special, he replied, a fiber, a cigarette filter, and persistence, just 3 things to pull justice back from the past. Linda Tran declined interviews. She left the courthouse alone, walking along Bryant Street, where SFPD's old headquarters once stored Box 89 MR for 30 years. She paused at a slope overlooking Islais Creek, where it all began. The water was clearer now, trees thicker on both banks. She knew a 29-year-old woman was once forgotten there, and now, her name had finally regained its voice. That evening, A news broadcast aired a short interview with Lucia Vega. In tears, she said, "My sister died in a dark night, but justice found its way. I want to thank everyone who didn't let her be forgotten." In the background, a youthful Marisol faded into San Francisco's fog, with text, "Case closed, after 34 years, *." The next day, at the cold case unit, Linda opened the final digital file. Under status, she typed, "Case 89H142, status, closed. Verdict, guilty, first-degree murder." She printed a copy, filed it in the original binder, and returned it to storage. As the metal cabinet door closed, the clack echoed softly but resoundingly, the sound of 34 years of waiting ending. Late that evening, Linda drove across the Bay Bridge, watching the city fade into golden lights and white fog. She recalled the first day she found Box 89MR, the dust rising as she lifted the lid, the scrawled 89MR, Vega, M. An 80-second song played on the radio, one Marisol sang at El Faro. Linda turned down the volume, letting it blend with the wind. 34 years, a forgotten case, an old box, a red fiber, and a kept promise. No crime truly vanishes if someone persists in seeking the truth. The Marisol Vega case was closed, but the story of investigators' resolve endured, like the faint, steadfast lights flickering over San Francisco Bay, illuminating even the darkest corners of the past. In November 2023, a month after Raymond Patrick O'Leary's life sentence without parole, the San Francisco Police Department, SFPD, launched the Times Legacy Evidence Initiative, TIMES, a comprehensive effort to review thousands of evidence boxes from 1,990 unsolved homicides or missing persons cases. The idea stemmed from the Marisol Vega case. A box, forgotten for 3 decades, unlocked the full truth. Now, it became a model for reinvestigation using next-generation DNA technology. At a press conference at Hunters Point, where Box 89MR was found, Police Chief Evelyn Shaw declared, "We won't let any evidence be buried by time." The Marisol Vega case proves every seal, every sample, no matter how small, can speak the truth. Behind her stood shelves of thousands of old boxes, now QR-coded and reorganized. Each represented an unfinished story, and SFPD pledged to reopen them all. Detective Linda Tran, who led the Vega investigation, was appointed technical advisor for the program. In an internal interview, she said, "I thought Marisol's case was a lucky break, a surviving box, an intact fiber. But it showed the system's patience. Evidence can sleep, but it never dies." Under her and San Mateo's forensic team's guidance, over 2,000 boxes from 1,995 were cataloged, with 370 flagged as DNA potential. Labs across California began receiving old samples, applying whole genome sequencing and forensic genealogy, the technologies that identified O'Leary. By late 2024, 17 other cold cases were reopened, with 6 identifying new suspects. The California DOJ declared the Vega case the first case study in its Cold Justice 2024 report, taught in investigator training statewide. For SFPD, the Vega case wasn't just a result but a structural shift. The damp, dusty Bryant Street storage was renovated into a next-generation forensic archive center, with automated management, low-temperature vaults, and sensor-sealed areas. Each evidence box was digitized and relabeled. Walking past the old shelves, Linda saw Box 89MR now in a glass display, labeled, "Closed by DNA Evidence, June 2023. Inside, everything remained as when she opened it. Red fibers, menthol cigarette filter, and a copy of the matching DNA report. The box became a symbol of restoring justice through science, internally dubbed the Vega Standard. Meanwhile, the case spurred collaboration among state forensic agencies. The San Mateo lab, which handled the re-examination, became a regional hub, receiving requests from other counties. Dr. Samuel Chen, the lab's head, spoke at a conference. The Vega case shows the value of long-term preservation. Evidence doesn't vanish. It just needs someone persistent enough to listen. Legally, the case set a precedent. In March 2024, the California state legislature passed the Times Cold Case Preservation Act *, mandating that all homicide evidence, post-1980, be stored for at least 75 years and re-examined every decade. The law was nicknamed Marisol's Law. Media called it the legal legacy of a victim who refused to be forgotten. Within SFPD, Linda Tran was promoted to deputy commander of the cold case unit. She kept her habit of visiting the storage room when time allowed, pausing at shelf D14, where box 89MR was once found by chance. On the nearby wall, colleagues mounted a small brass plaque with her hearing quote, "Science doesn't forget what humans overlook." In June 2025, 2 years after reopening the case, SFPD released a summary report. 61 old evidence boxes recovered, 19 cases with suspects identified via DNA, and over 300 samples preserved for future generations. The report's opening listed Marisol Vega first, with a note. Closed by DNA evidence, model case of 20th century forensics. That afternoon, as Linda and technicians finished the final inventory, sunset light streamed through the glass window, glinting off thousands of new red seals identical to the paint on the Islais Creek rock. She knew that red wasn't just a case's memory but the color of justice, revived from the past. She lightly touched box 89MR's lid, fine dust rising. The embossed, "Closed by DNA evidence," stood clear in the light. In her work log, she wrote the final entry for the case she pursued for 2 years. The Vega case, closed, but never forgotten. The box stayed silent for 34 years. Now it will speak for every case that still waits. Marisol Vega's story reminds us that justice may come late but isn't lost if people and systems persist. The night after Loma Prieta, in a blackout-stricken Mission District, a red fiber and menthol cigarette filter seemed meaningless but lived again 34 years later through Detective Linda Tran, a robust chain of custody, and genealogical tracing when CODIS failed. From Box 89MR in Hunters Point to Operation Ember and the Forensic Correlation Report, each detail teaches 3 practical lessons. First, in work and life, store records properly, keep honest logs, digitize files, photograph receipts. Don't alter logs, like O'Leary's shift record. Small integrity today can save or convict you years later. Second, don't idolize titles. O'Leary was a firefighting hero, but truth lay in an 8-mile detour, Rust Pro 300 paint, and mismatched ink signatures. In neighborhoods, schools, or workplaces, respect authority but demand transparency. Accountability builds trust. Third, technology only works when someone asks the right questions. Linda's systematic thinking, inventorying storage, verifying seals, cross-checking routes, using legal indirect samples made the difference. In families and businesses, build an investigative habit. Cross-check schedules, invoices, emails. Don't ignore signals. If you work late like Marisol, prioritize safety. Travel with a friend. Share your location. Avoid dark routes. As citizens, support DNA testing budgets for cold cases. Justice is justice preserved. If you believe every truth deserves to be found, subscribe to our channel to join us in reopening cases forgotten by time. Thank you for following Marisol Vega's story. See you in the next video, where another American case is awakened from the dark.